Welcome into UFC Best Bets, where the UFC is visiting Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with the return of the former middleweight champion Israel Adesanya. He is taking on Nassourdine Imavov in a 5-round main event. You can find that at a special start time, noon Eastern, on ESPN Plus. As we welcome you into yet another edition of UFC Best Bets with myself, Brett Okamoto, Ian Parker. Glad you're with us on this final week of the month of January. We are right back to work here in 2025, handicapping this one. Then we'll be moving on to UFC 312 next week. But before we do all of that, we look back at UFC 311 in Los Angeles. How did we do, Mr. Parker, at the betting window?
Overall on the night, wasn't my best. My best bets got the big donut, kept going into the third round and losing. And unfortunately, that was the theme. However, if you've been following the way we're doing it this season with our show, Parker's Premium Play, it's been a 5-unit each week, back-to-back weeks. So that made the damage a lot less. I'm back on track. I had a week to really dive in, recoup, and reboot. Let's get it going. This is the week. I'm hitting my parlay. I'm going for the sweep. Let's go.
Yeah. You know, we're not going to win every single week. We still go in very, very optimistic on this 5-round main event. As I mentioned, Israel Adesanya taking on Nassourdine Imavov. Israel Adesanya, no surprise here, minus 160 favorite according to ESPN Bet. For me, Ian, before you go into your handicapping on this one, to me, it's about reading Israel Adesanya's mindset. How much does he want to be here? This guy has had a very long career. He has been extremely active. This is obviously a different situation for him coming in. It is still a 5-round fight, but it is a non-title fight. First one in a while for him. I'm just trying to read and get a sense of where Izzy is mentally, and that's how I would base my bet on this. What are you seeing here in this 185-pound matchup?
You know, there's a couple of ways. Number one, the mindset for sure. And he seems, I think he seems kind of relieved here. You know, I think he seems relieved to not be in a title fight, kind of have the pressure off a little bit. And he's not a huge favorite. I would have still put him at minus 185 to minus 200. So I think there's the value is on Israel Adesanya, because outside of getting taken down and held down for 5 rounds, which is not really Imavov's game. On top of that, Imavov, he's not your Dagestani with the pressure and the pace. He doesn't even have great cardio. We saw against Brendan Allen, even though he won, he was looking tired in those 3 rounds. Against Jared Cannonier, it was a slow pace. If this stays on the feet for 5 rounds, for me, this is a great matchup for Israel Adesanya. It doesn't mean that Imavov doesn't belong here. He does. He's got the wins. He's done what he's needed to do. He needs to win this fight. However, a 5-round kickboxing match, for me, what this is going to look like is Israel Adesanya. He seems like he's in great shape. I love the fact that at this point in his career, he's got Robert Whittaker there who's pushing him. You know, Whittaker, although coming off that loss to Chimaev prior to that, was looking great. I think this is going to be a good fight for Izzy. I actually am going to push my chips in on this. I'm going to say it early. He's going to be my premium play this week. I don't see him losing this fight. I don't see Imavov I just don't see the skill set there to beat Israel Adesanya. You know, getting subbed by Duplessis, hey, Duplessis the champ. That's not the end of the world. Losing to an Alex Pereira, same thing. And Sean Strickland. These are all the top guys that Izzy's been fighting. So for me, this is a do or die for Izzy in regards to legacy. All right, I don't know if he's necessarily going to go back to being a champion. I don't see him being a Chimaev if that ever took place. However, I still believe that he is one of the top of the world easily, and I think he gets past Imavov, and I think he does it really well this week.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Taking a shot here on Izzy at minus 160 in a fight that is must win. You know, this is going to be one of those situations where I throw it out there. Keep an eye on Ian's Twitter account, because I just feel like this is going to be another opportunity potentially for a live bet, because if you just read in the body language and the output of Izzy Adesanya, I think that's going to tell you a lot, even early on in this fight, potentially. Maybe not. Maybe, you sit out of the live betting, but I do think that, like, depending on how he comes out, his body language and then his output in the first round might be something worth taking a look there, the live betting on that main event. Let's move to 185 pounds. Bullet Nurmagomedov taking on MVP, and this one has had some very interesting line movement, because when it opened, MVP just a very small favorite. That is certainly no longer the case, as Nurmagomedov all the way up to nearly a 2-1 favorite. So big difference if you were betting this on January 4th as opposed to betting it today. What do you think of this line movement, and ultimately how are we landing on this co-main event, Ian?
Look, if you are someone like myself who liked MVP from the beginning and you waited, you were a little patient knowing where this fight was taking place, you just got value right there. Because for me, on the feet, I think Michael Venom Page is potentially the better striker here. He is an annoying striker. He throws you off with your tempo, with your footwork, everything. And I'm sorry, as much as I think Shara Bullett's a good fighter, fun fighter to watch, he's not been fighting top-level competition the way MVP has fought between past organizations and now. Remember, MVP just went to a decision with Ian Gary, and we just saw what Ian Gary did with Shavkat. For me, Brett, we've cashed a lot on Shara Bullet here, but we know where he is exposed. Number one, his boxing's not great. It's the kicking game. He gets hit a lot. MVP is going to hit him. And let's be honest, this guy was getting taken down by someone who didn't even have good wrestling. MVP is doing grappling tournaments. We saw him against Ian Gary where he was winning in the grappling exchange for one round. Had he probably stayed on top in that third round, he wins that fight. MVP as the underdog here is screaming at me. I'm going with MVP. I'll be flat out honest and transparent. If this goes to a decision because of location, I am terrified that Bullet can steal one and MVP can get robbed. But I think MVP is the better overall well-rounded fighter here. He's fought better. I'm going with MVP as the underdog here. I think we're getting good value.
Yeah, I agree with you again. Almost one of those situations where it makes me nervous because the line doesn't make sense to me. I don't really get why the line has moved so drastically in Bullet's favor. I mean, I get it. The guy's coming off of a terrific knockout, but it seems like Michael Page has been a little bit, I believe, undervalued in his time with the UFC thus far. And so that continues here, in my opinion, at a 185-pound co-main event. Let's go to the bantamweight division. It's Said Nurmagomedov taking on Vinicius Oliveira. You are heavy on a side here. You like one of these plays. What do we like on this bantamweight fight?
So, look, I think Oliveira is a fun fighter. I think he's someone who's going to be in the UFC for a long time because he's exciting. Fans like it. I think that's why we're also getting such a generous line for Said Nurmagomedov, who has fought a much higher level competition. Oliveira just beat Ricky Simon, which was impressive. Ricky Simon wasn't even setting up his wrestling. He beat up Oliveira's leg, kick him to the point where Oliveira could only fight on one leg, and then in round 3 just stopped kicking the leg. So really poor IQ from Simon, which cost him the win. Nurmagomedov is a very high Q, composed fighter, and you need that against someone Oliveira who's going to try to make this chaotic, try to make this into a brawl. To me, this is one of those fights where Nurmagomedov, I think he's the better striker, but he's going to use that ground game. He's going to use that pressure grappling. Maybe get another ninja choke. His submission game is really strong. And I think he wins this one here. I think he's so much better than Oliveira, skill for skill, where he's fought, where they are in their careers. I just think this line's where it's at because people are in love with the fun ability of Oliveira. But for me, 3 units on Said Nurmagomedov. He's going to probably wrestle and pressure his way to victory here.
All right, pretty confident pick there on Said Nurmagomedov. From there, we go to the lightweight division. Firas Ziam taking on Mike Davis. Mike Davis at a -140 favorite. What do you like here?
So look, Firas Ziam, I think he's got 3 wins in a row, if I'm correct, coming off that Frivola knockout, which was extremely impressive here. But Mike Davis, he's called the Beast for a reason. This man is the way better striker on the feet, and we're also seeing his jiu-jitsu game, and he's getting submissions now too. He's been out due to an injury. If he wasn't injured, he'd probably be the -175 favorite here. So the line is down to -140. I love Mike Davis. I think he's a dark horse in the division. And I'm not saying he's a champion next year. I'm just saying this is a guy that his skills, because of injury, he's been out for a while. He's not being looked at. He's over the, flying off the radar. This guy is so skilled and talented. I believe he shines against Firas Ziam. So we're going with Mike Davis here.
All right, so we're taking some favorites, but we're taking them at a discount, you believe, with Firas Ziam, Said Nurmagomedov, Izzy. These are favorites, but you believe that they should be more in the range of -180, -200, which I like when you get that perspective. Let's move to the final pick of your card here. It's Shamil Gazib taking on Thomas Peterson, and that takes place in the heavyweight division. What do you like here?
Yeah, I'm going to go over 1.5 rounds here. I know with heavyweights that gets a little sketchy, but what we saw to Gazib against Jair Rosenstrike, and he does best when he takes the guys down and he sits on top. Peterson, however, is an excellent wrestler for heavyweights. Again, let's not pick me apart for saying he's the most magnificent elite wrestler on planet Earth. But Guy is a former collegiate wrestler. That's how he wins. He pressures. He takes guys down. We saw against Jamal Pogues. Good chin. Went to a decision here. I think Gaziv's going to try and keep it on the feet once he fails the takedowns. I think if a finish happens, maybe in the beginning of the third due to just exhaustion here, over 1.5 for that one. So, yeah, we're going to go with, 3 favorites, an underdog, and an over 1.5, really mixing it up this week. Brett, the one thing I want to say before we go to the next thing, these lines this week are so much more manageable that we've had in a really long time, where I don't have to shrink things down by adding in a round as well or an over-under. So I'm liking this week. I love the slate. We should be okay.
Well, and coming off the back of that, I'm going to have you do something that you just said you weren't doing for this card, is give me a prop, because we are picking a lot of sides. We took a total. How about a prop? Because that's probably, along with the long shot parlay, one of my favorite things that we do on the show. What about a prop this week?
Yeah, so this week, trying to find these props. One of the ones that stuck out to me was Jasdavicius at decision, but at minus 165, I didn't want to go that route as my prop because last week with Hossa, 2 weeks ago with Carol Hossa, went that way. We lost, and that really didn't sit well with me. We're going to go Terrence McKinney here to win by submission. He is not going to take a chance of getting hit. His chin is really not good these days. He's fighting someone who hasn't fought since 2022, who's been submitted multiple times. McKinney has a good wrestling game, good top game. Submittee, I believe it's at even money last time I checked, by submission.
Okay. All right. So that runs us through the picks on the card and your prop. Let's go ahead and pull up the units breakdown for this. This is something, again, that we're doing new for 2025. Go ahead and explain what your card looks like this Saturday morning at that special start time, Ian.
Let's do it. So Parker's premium play. Izzy Adesanya, go big or go home on the former champ. I think skill for skill, he still has it. I think he's better than Imavov everywhere the fight goes. I think he has underrated takedown defense. I think he'll be just fine. Nurmagomedov on the money line. MVP as a plus 160 underdog. Mike Davis and then Gaziev Peterson over 1.5 rounds. And if you parlay all those together just for the heck of it, you're getting a 17-1 odd right there. I like that.
There you go. 11 units at risk there on the best bets. And now one last order of business. We got our parlays to get to. First one is the long shot parlay. Where are we going with this one?
This is just by crazy chance. It's around the plus 17 number as well. But we're going to go with MVP to win by decision, Mike Davis decision. And you know what? Why not roll twice with McKinney getting the sub here? Plus 17.75 for the long shot parlay. Let's roll.
And the final order of business, Parker's parlay for UFC Fight Night from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It is a 3-teamer. Take it away, Ian. Tell us what we got.
Brett, I have been cold with Parker's parlay. This is the week we get the win streak started. Give me Sergey Pavlovich coming off 2 losses in a row. He's fighting someone in Rosenstrike that I don't believe has that power more to knock out Pavlovich. I think Pavlovich gets this done. We're going to go with Muhammad Naimov, and we're going to go with Jasdavicius. She's taking on Mayra Bueno Silva, who's dropping down a weight class. Jasdavicius should be able to wrestle her and get a decision over 3 rounds. Plus 129, a 3-legger. Let's get this streak started.
Boom. You got your parlays, you got a prop, you got all of your best bets with the unit breakdowns. We're going to get some money in your pockets before Saturday afternoon. You got to love it. 9 a.m. prelims on ESPN Plus, noon Eastern, main card, ESPN Plus. Thank you so much for watching UFC Best Bets with Ian Parker, myself, Brent Okamoto. We will be back next week, UFC 312, a banger of a main event and a co-main event to talk about. Can't wait to break down those from a betting perspective. We'll see you next week for the UFC 312. Enjoy the fights this weekend.